Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. I've actually brought along a friend for a part of this show, broadcaster Brian Noonan hanging out as well. There's so much to talk about, so many things in the news, and yet the interview that our president gave to ABC and David Muir was probably one of the more interesting things we've seen in a while. Even CNN now saying that they think that there might be some issues there for old Joe Biden. One of the biggest challenges he had was remembering which one of the two things he was talking about, COVID pills and COVID tests. Brian Noonan, I don't know if you caught this conversation as well, but it is yet another example of a moment in which the current president seems to be easily confused, and that's scary to me. What about to you?
I'm always scared when people are confused and they're supposed to be in power, taking a good, they're looking out for us, supposedly.
Yes.
They're setting policy that is supposed to affect all of us. And if they're a little confused, that's a little too much in my book.
Right, exactly. So some of those conversations, some of the things had involved, as I said, the inability to find tests in this country. Also, there was the moment where David asked Biden if he would run again for office, and he did say yes, and I will play this audio here in just a second. He then said but, and anybody that's heard a yes but answer to any kind of question knows the actual answer is a no. After he said that, he was then, Noonan. After he said that, he was then asked, what about if Trump runs? And, of course, that's the viral moment. Here we go. Let's play it.
I want to ask you about something I asked weeks before the election when we sat down. You said you would absolutely serve 8 years if elected. Do you plan to run for re-election?
Yes. But look, I'm a great respecter of fate. Fate has intervened in my life many, many times. If I'm in the health I'm in now, if I'm in good health, then, in fact, I would run again.
And if that means a rematch against Donald Trump?
All right, I have to stop it for a second right after he says, and if that means a rematch with Donald Trump, because my favorite first thing there, Noonan, is that in response to Biden saying, yes, but I have to think about my health, I have to think about all this, you can hear already those ideas that maybe our current president is thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do this for a lot longer, especially when my approval rating is so bad. Am I right on that point, Noonan? You can hear the statement go, yes, I plan to run again, but also this other thing that kind of says that maybe I won't.
Well, listen, any politician would tell you they're not going to throw in the towel this early. We've still got Joe Biden still has 3 years on his term.
He does.
He's not going to go, you know what, friends, I'm all done. Me and popcorn and chip chop, we're going to go hang out by the barbershop and buy penny candy. No, he's got to at least put up this front. Joe Biden, if nothing else, likes to be perceived as this tough old guy. He's a scrapper from Scranton. But he also knows that if he says right now that he's not running again,
sure,
absolutely zero gets done for the next 3 years. Nothing.
That is true.
Because everybody who's wavering, anybody who might be, we'll give him the benefit. Nah, it's finished.
I mean,
so he's got to say yes. I like that he couched it in his health.
Yes.
Man's going to be 81 on election day.
Yes.
82 if he were to win and get inaugurated again. So yeah, listen. At 82, I don't want to be doing anything that stressful. I want to be on a beach.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, although I would say that with Joe Manchin as someone that's now being vilified by Democrats and invited to become a Republican by Republicans, Biden might not get much done anyway. He did answer that question, by the way, that Muir just asked. What if Trump runs? Does that make it more interesting to you? And Biden did say, you're trying to tempt me now, before the rest of the statement, which I'll play in just a sec. And I feel like that's also indicating that his first answer was a no. Saying you're trying to tempt me now is confusing if you said you're going to run anyway, but here we go.
Trying to tempt me now. Sure. Why would I not run against Donald Trump for the nominee? That would increase the prospect of running.
Sure. Why would I not run against Donald Trump in an upcoming election? The answer why, in my opinion, would be all the failures you have are conversations that he talked about a lot and successes in his corner. Even the vaccine is now something that's starting to be more widely addressed by the former president, and something that even Biden recently credited to the past administration. I don't know where the victories are in the current administration. And I know where the talking points lean in the past administration's favor. Noonan, you feel the same way?
Yeah, it's just things aren't going well, but
No.
Donald Trump is definitely the burr under Joe Biden's saddle. It gets him in old man parlance. He gets riled up.
He
his
does.
dander is up.
It is.
He's ready to scrap. He wants to throw down. He's going to get his rusty razor blade from the pool where he was a lifeguard. He wants to fight. So he's not going to roll over for Donald Trump no matter what. He's also, again, he's not going to do it 3 years before the election.
Right. I don't know. I feel like
know,
that would be more powerful and more valuable to the Democratic Party that does seem in disarray via Joe Manchin more so than anybody else to go ahead and give them time. I will play this, though. I've got a little bit more audio. This is Newt Gingrich. He was on Fox last night. He was talking about a whisper he's already hearing, someone else he thinks could be in this political race in the near future. It's not Kamala. It's not any of the names that maybe you were projecting, although I know a lot of conservatives would laugh this name right out of a room. Democrats, not so much.
Expect Biden to not run again. I think the Democratic Party would be in a state of shock if he did. I think Kamala Harris is weaker than Biden. So the latest rumor I heard was that Hillary's going to run, and I think that it would say a lot about the chaos of America if Hillary Clinton reemerged one more.
Hillary Clinton could run again for office, according to a Newt Gingrich. That is real. That's an actual thing that he said. And I love the fact that Newt ends the sentence with, that would say a lot in the chaos in America. If Hillary thinks it's smart to run again, it actually says a lot about the chaos in the Democratic Party, in my opinion. If Hills can convince anybody, it's a good idea to put her back on a ticket.
Craig, if I can interrupt for 1 second, I'm getting breaking news across my wire. The Democrats are planning to run the corpse of John F. Kennedy in 2022. This is an exciting development in the Democratic Party. The progressive branch and the more conservative branch of the Democratic Party have all released a statement. They said, this is the best we can do. We are very excited to bring the decomposed body of a former great president to the forefront.
Now, look, we joke about all this, but when Hillary Clinton released that video, or actually, I don't know, I think maybe it was technically someone else that put it out, of her acceptance speech that she was never allowed to give because she lost the election in 2016, and she got emotional. It was about her mom who has passed away, and obviously that topic can touch on a lot of people's emotional heartstrings. I knew from jump, from seeing that was political positioning and trying to get back in the public eye and be seen as not a robot or, human at all, which are things that a lot of people struggle to see Hillary as. So it's surreal, but not at all, I guess, as shocking as some might think, to hear the name already being thrown out there. And I do actually believe that this could happen, Noonan. We could see a Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump rerun in 2024.
The Democratic Party is in such horrible disarray. They had every opportunity to make hay while the sun shines. I keep going back to my old-timey Joe Biden phrases, if you don't mind, Craig. They were going to make hay. They had everything going in their favor, and they couldn't get out of their own way. So it wouldn't surprise me that they bring back somebody who's, Hillary Clinton, for all she's done, she's not going to be president. There's no way.
No.
There have to be. Can we find, please, anybody under 70 to run for president? Is there anybody in this country who, could do 2 terms without us having to worry that they're going to blow out a hip?
Sure.
Somebody who's not, and that's not ageist. It's just, all right, everybody who's in the conversation now has had their chance. They've tried. Hillary's tried a number of times. It's obvious. For her, it's unfortunate. It's never going to be her time. Yes, she took a nice paycheck from Masterclass to release this. Yes, she's down the toilet.
I totally agree.
She took the paycheck from Masterclass to put this out there. I agree with you. It humanizes her a little more. But it would be Well, listen, anybody talking about their mom dying or whatever, you feel for them, even if you don't like them.
Well, hold on. The only way that you don't is when you know how performative and how designed it is. That's always been the problem of a Hillary Clinton, is that you knew
There's nothing.
Right. Every
nothing
moment.
Genuine.
Exactly. Every moment of emotional display to the world was manufactured. None of this is real human. So it actually makes a lot of people even more upset, I think, for those that see through this.
And I understand that, and I concur with everything you said. But at some point, you got to go, all right, we know it's a performance. It's like going to a Broadway show.
Yes.
Did I like the performance? Sure, the performance moved me. I knew it was a performance the whole time. That doesn't mean that I want to hang out with the actor every day and let the actor decide what I'm going to do with my life. But all right, I enjoyed the performance a little bit. I knew she was getting paid for that performance. It was fantastic. If the Democrats are so dumb as to even, all right, you can consider it one night over about 6 Manhattans, but then you have to wake up and say, we really need to figure out what's going on, because right now we're a train wreck.
Yes. Yeah, I know you want to say a
different
different word.
It's not going to get any better.
I know you want to say a different phrase. It's fine.
I did. I almost wanted to use some sort of show reference.
Right. We got to take a break. A lot more. That's the voice of Brian Noonan hanging out with me for the first hour. My name is Craig Collins, filling in on the Chad Benson Show. A lot more after this.
Hashtag me too. Hashtag immigration reforms. Hashtag help. I'm trapped in a hashtag factory and I can't get out. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in, and I've actually brought along a friend just in time for the holidays, because we will also celebrate the holidays, even if some of the doctors and medical experts out there tell you not to, depending on vaccine status, although we are vaccinated. My name is Craig, and that's Brian Noonan, a radio broadcaster hanging out too. I wanted to immediately jump to this story in college football. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Brian, but college football announced that they will have unique COVID testing just before the national championship games, the playoff games, I should say, and then the national championship. And even further, they said that you could lose via a COVID forfeit, which means a national champion in the world of NCAA football, if there's an outbreak of some kind, which we obviously can't really predict, may be decided via COVID forfeit. What say you, Noonan?
That is ridiculous. There is you cannot crown a national champion by forfeit. This is something that is out of their control. If they all went out the night before and got hammered and couldn't wake up to play the game, then you go, all right, this is their fault. But if someone were to get sick, if there is an outbreak on either side, and we see these things happening, could happen, maybe not. Like you said, we don't predict it, but that is ridiculous. College football's championship should not be decided by kissing your sister, which is a tie or a forfeit.
Right.
There's absolutely no way. Postpone the game if that's the case, but you gotta play the game.
Amen. See, that's exactly my thought, is that since this is the kind of thing that would be no one's fault if it did happen, and NCAA would choose not to play a game because of a significant outbreak on any of the teams involved in the college playoff or the potential national championship game that would happen, you just delay. Like, you just spend time waiting, quarantining, whatever it is you need to do, the 10 days, the 2 weeks, because you have to play the game, and there would forever be an asterisk. Yes, there would forever be an asterisk over the team that won a national championship by not playing football.
You're not the champion if you don't play the game. All we need to do is look back to last year at the NBA. The NBA kept everybody in a bubble. They played all their games. Mm-hmm. If the NCAA is so worried about this, all right, Christmas is Saturday. So you let everybody celebrate Christmas. Then you put all the potential teams in quarantine. They're in a bubble.
Sure.
And then you can play your games at the regular time. You can test. You can put the people who test positive in another little bubble. You can bubble it all up, like you said. It's going to be like, oh, fantastic, little pods of bubbles everywhere.
Sure.
But then But it's an abomination against sports to say.
Thank you. That's the hot take of the day, but I love it. And it's not it's probably not that hot of a take. Here's another question for you, just kind of shifting gears to something definitely more lighthearted in time for the holidays. If you wanted someone to do you a favor, if you wanted someone to, do anything, small or big for you, should you text that person, email that person, call that person? New research can answer this question. What say you, Noonan?
All right, I'm old school. I don't believe that you can text somebody. I do believe there's a gradation in favors. Some favors very small. If I say, hey, Craig, can I borrow a cup of sugar? First, you'd say, why are we in 1957? Then you'd say, okay, I guess. Mm-hmm. If I said, Craig, I need a kidney, I'm not going to text you. I'm not going to email you. I will probably call you. Because then you can hear the desperation in my voice.
Sure.
You know that this is important if I actually call. Now, being your age, you probably won't answer the phone, but I'm old enough to still use the phone and call people.
It makes sense to me. Now, the actual trick of this whole thing is that the research found, even though those were the options given to the people who responded, they actually all came back with the right answer of you should do this in person and none of the options above. If you have to do an electronic option, though, as you just said, the only answer is call. And actually, between the other two, a text message may work, but people said email would usually, if not always, fail. If you actually have to ask someone for a favor and you do it via the most impersonal and not even immediate of communication styles as email, they are probably ignoring or saying no to any request.
Yeah, if you email somebody for a favor, you already know you're not getting that favor. That's the coward's way to ask for a favor. I'll just send a mass email, and then you're going to, use the BCC to drop in everybody that you hope will lend you that $1,000 because you owe somebody a little money and your kneecaps are in jeopardy.
Although I think if it's the NCAA, they might allow for an emailed champion. They might be like, you know what, it's fine. You just email the championship to us, and we'll go ahead and decide you're the winner.
Hold on, Craig. I have more breaking news. Just got a text from the NCAA. I am, in fact, the national champion.
Well, congratulations, man. I thought you had a good season. You were very strategic.
It was great.
Right. Very strategic to have no losses by also having no wins and not playing any games. And that is a champion.
Sounds right. That's perfect. But I did not test positive, so I'm in.
There you go. We got a quick break coming up here in just a bit. After the break, I do want to talk about some more, of course, of the things out there in the world of politics, like Jim Jordan responding to his request to be a part of this January 6th investigation. And then also a very, 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 can't say that enough times, jealous girlfriend who asked for a live feed of a boyfriend's work day. I will explain more details as to why the guy thought it was a good idea. All that and more coming up. Craig Collins and Brian Noonan filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I've also brought along a friend just in time for the holidays because I was told by some that I shouldn't gather and by others that I can, although I am vaccinated. So I guess Dr. Fauci has given me a blessing here. Brian Noonan, radio broadcaster, hanging out with me. I have to immediately go to this, Brian. Joy Reid says some things on her television show on MSNBC that feel intense. Let's say it that way. They feel over the top. A lot of things about it just don't really make sense to me. And yet this is one of the more, and I know that this is probably an argument that some people are willing to have and others are not, but Joy and her two different doctor guests talked about the ways in which we force vaccines by being worse and worse to the unvaccinated. First, Joy, and I think this is now coming out more and more in the world of science is inaccurate, says that the unvaccinated are the only ones spreading COVID. And then her two doctors say, let's restrict people who are unvaccinated more, and let's not even treat them if they're sick. I'll get to the audio first, and then I'll get the reaction.
I know just off the top of my head, at least a half dozen people who've gotten COVID, who are vaccinated, but who got it in settings where they were around mixed groups, where people were not necessarily unvaccinated or not necessarily vaccinated.
I am even going to stop it right there first because, look, if Joy knows a bunch of people who've gotten COVID recently, I would be amazed if all of those people know exactly where they got COVID from, unless it's one party and everyone has decided that's the party, and now they're all blaming one person that may be unvaccinated or a couple people at said party. But usually you can't figure that out, Noonan.
Well, listen, if Joy Reid is being exposed to this many people with COVID, what's she doing on TV without a mask on, first of all?
That's a good point.
She sounds like patient zero. She's got a lot of she's hanging out with sketchy folks.
Yes.
If they're all passing viruses back and forth. But yeah, listen, there's outbreaks in people who are vaccinated that are passing it out. We all know that. It is not just the unvaccinated.
Exactly.
What's happening now, unfortunately, with the unvaccinated is they are suffering more when they do get sick.
Sure. No, absolutely. We can talk about the serious illness and everything.
Yes,
I want to get back.
You can't. It's all hyperbolic.
Right. I
want to
Yes. I want to get back to Joy
Scarlet
Reid, though.
Letter.
Correct. I want to get back to Joy Reid in a lot of this audio, though, because I think what the doctors say is even more interesting.
So the unvaccinated are spreading this thing, and it's mutating, let's be frank, because of the unvaccinated, okay? So I'm running out of ideas about what to do if people are refusing to protect themselves and other people.
Now we jump to some of the doctors, the first one having the hotter of the two takes.
I do think negative incentives, whether it's a vaccine mandate in the workplace or, and this is where it gets controversial, but we need to start talking about this, the bioethics of it broadly, because this is not the last respiratory pandemic we're going to face, Joy. What do we do with somebody who's unvaccinated, who's taking advanced ICU therapies from somebody who is vaccinated in the hospital? How do we rank order that priority? We do it for organs, kidneys, livers, lungs. We say, did you smoke? Did you drink recently? If you did, you're lower on the list, even if you need it. We need to start thinking of that model, have bioethics around it, a framework, because this is not going to be the last respiratory pandemic.
Look, the fact that people are so comfortable, I know, the fact that people are so comfortable saying these kind of things now more and more, and these are doctors, these are scientists, these are people that took that, oath to
Hippocratic
protect.
oath,
exactly,
do no harm.
Exactly correct. To go this far, to push into the worlds of we shouldn't treat those that are unvaccinated. And the other doctor, the other guest, who pops up a lot on CNN, Dr. Wen, said we need to restrict the unvaccinated more. Here's that.
I think President Biden's message yesterday was the right one in some way, in saying vaccinated people should move on with their lives with precautions. But I wish that he would go further to restrict the activities of the unvaccinated, because they are the ones who are still spreading COVID and prolonging the pandemic for all of us.
That is a lie. That is a lie that's being told more
Let's
and more
round
often.
them up, Craig. We're going to put them in pens.
Right.
We're going to shock them.
Yeah. No, and honestly, and this is just simply data. This is not a biased opinion on the left or on the right. More and more information emerging, especially when we look at Omicron, but truthfully about the Delta variant too, the ability for breakthrough cases to occur. This does not mean that you get seriously sick or even have symptoms at all, but that you have a case and that you can spread it to others is tremendously likely, especially with Omicron. So the unvaccinated are not spreading this alone. The unvaccinated are not the problem with
dirty people.
Right.
Need to be
with new mutations
shunned.
being created. It's not just the unvaccinated. And the idea that you could choose not to treat someone and let them die because of their decision making there is just, it's hateful. I don't know how to say it better.
It is hateful.
Yeah.
And I hope it's just this one quack on television.
Two.
That it's not.
And Joy.
Well, two quacks.
That would be three.
Well, Joy, come on, Joy's a lunatic. Joy. I love that he used the term bioethics and then talked about letting people die.
Yeah.
Just go, and that's different than organ transplants. Organ transplants, that's. That you can't compare the two.
No, the most simplistic way to say it, Noonan, as you're touching on, is an organ in someone who is going to use, say someone who's going to smoke and gets a lung, they're likely to not have that organ last as long as someone who's not going to do that. So the
exactly. And if you're a big drinker and you're 50 and there's an 18-year-old who doesn't drink, well, they probably are going to make better use of that liver
with someone else. Yes, so it's the damage. It's the damage of the success in the world of medicine that makes that an argument. you would
but
be
the
able...
argument that they're making here is not ethical.
No.
And it does go against, as you mentioned, the Hippocratic Oath. It's also this hyperbolic, let's sound the alarm, we're going to brand these people. Now, I'm vaccinated, as you are.
Yep.
I believe it's helping me. Do I still think I could get sick? Yes. Do I still think I could pass it on without even knowing? Yes, and I'm vaccinated. I'm not one of the dirty people that Joy and her ilk are talking about.
Apparently.
I'm wandering about.
Right.
So we all could get it. And this is irresponsible. I understand if a business wants to say, hey, businesses can make their own decision because it's their business. But we can't keep listening to these alarmists who are throwing out bad information or, dare I say, fake information to try to rile people up. At this point, we're a year into vaccines. If people aren't going to get it, all your threats aren't going to make them get it. And
Correct.
Telling them they can't go into a certain place is not, it's going to make them dig their heels in more.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
None of us,
the whole taking away of freedoms, the whole, requiring and restricting in the world of your everyday life is worrisome to me. And one of the reasons I think we had arguments for quite some time as to, those who chose not to wear a mask or not do this or not do that because they were worried about government overreach. But what I'd say beyond any of those thoughts, any of that kind of stuff going on right now is just how wildly inaccurate this information is.
Yes.
How almost angry and hateful, in my opinion, some of it sounds like it is. And this comes from people that identify with a party that wants to always pretend or always throw the messaging out there that they're the loving, they're the caring, they're the I'm here for the little guy, I'm here to overserve those who are not protected by certain things. And yet they're willing to say on at least one national program that we should not treat and should not allow people who are unvaccinated to have the same life as the vaccinated. There's no scenario
Craig,
in any other argument.
Craig, if you could hold on, I've got breaking news again. I'm getting texted from the Democratic Party. We do love everybody, ... who thinks like us.
Exactly. But I will say this.
So,
there is no scenario where this argument would be made about any other of the hot button issues in our society. And if it were made, a lot of people would get fired. But in the world of the vaccine versus the unvaccinated, you can go about as hot take as possible. And apparently that's just business as usual.
Imagine if we said people who are overweight need to be shunned from, Old Country Buffet.
Yes.
People who smoke. We already, keep smokers away. But there was evidence there that secondhand smoke does affect people. So, okay, you smoke outside. But you're right. We cannot allow this kind of hateful speech to continue. And it is. Come on.
Yeah, no, and I know that sounds like you're going extreme, or we're trying to be,
no, I'm not
so
being
far
extreme.
Right.
No, you're being a hypocrite. You're being a hypocrite to say we're going to let people die. Now, you can shake your head and wag your finger and disagree with people who are not getting vaccinated because the science does say that if you're not vaccinated and you get sick, it's going to be worse.
Sure.
Okay. That's you, but we can't say to them, listen, if you want to risk your own health, you can't be around anybody else.
Well, and that's
because
honestly,
there's people who smoke, there's people who drink, there's people who drive too fast, there's people who do all sorts of things that mess up their health, and we allow them to wander into society.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing about this change when we talk about Omicron. And I know we're going to get to other topics of the day. I still definitely want to talk about this very jealous girlfriend. But I will just say this. As we get further and further down the road and to a scientifically proven idea that transmission rates are still the same, that infection rates are the same, that there is no difference, no protection of your fellow man that comes from being vaccinated or unvaccinated, it becomes like any other health conversation we have where essentially you are deciding on your own independent personal safety to do something or not do something based on what you think is and isn't the risk of a vaccine or anything else, as you gave a few other examples, and no example is going to be perfect, drinking or smoking or anything. But as it becomes truthfully to scientists, that version of a conversation, we have to understand it as that and stop pretending it's this other thing that we've been talking about it being for all this time. It is an independent personal decision that you would make or not make that would only impact you. Now, moving on, I do want to talk about this girl, and then we'll take a break. This woman was jealous and did not believe her boyfriend when he told her that he picked up an extra shift at the Amazon warehouse. He's going to do a 12-hour shift just before the Christmas holiday. So she demanded that he put on a FaceTime call and somehow keep the phone on him and, broadcasting the entire 12 hours to make sure he wasn't anywhere other than where he said he would be. And the reason that this is a viral story is he did it. He was like, that's fine. I'll just put the phone taped to my chest.
Stop it.
He did. And he's like, I'll do my 12-hour shift. And Nella, who is the girlfriend, will still be happy with me. I will tell you this before you weigh in. She is rather attractive. But the boyfriend just decided...
Nobody's that attractive. Nobody's that attractive, Craig.
I don't know.
This is where we need that. This is where we need the whip sound effect from your crack production team, because this man has zero spine, zero background, and obviously the lowest self-esteem possible. Yes. If he's going to... I don't care how good-looking this woman is, because the old saying goes, no matter how good-looking she is, there's somebody who's done with her.
Yes.
And that needs to be this guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I cannot imagine being told, I don't trust that you're going to work, so you have to wear a camera. I would say that I don't trust that you still need to be here. So skedaddle,
See you
don't
later.
let the door hit you.
No, absolutely. A lot of people called it insane in reactions on social media, and one person, my favorite comment, actually said that this is the kind of thing that someone would need, help with, that she would have to quit her job, and then also just in all caps, this isn't normal, which it definitely was not. But again, I'm not saying that I support the guy's decision, but I think men are uniquely more willing to accept a crazy ask every now and then than a woman would be.
This is not a crazy ask. This is fundamental distrust.
But
now we don't know. Maybe this guy has done this before and said, "Hey, baby, I'm going to work," and then he's at the club, making it rain. I don't know what he's up to, but even then, if she does not trust that you're going to work, then she doesn't trust you for anything.
She does not. However,
it's time to set her free.
I would say that it appears from the video, once he taped the phone to his chest and connected with her via FaceTime, he kind of forgot about it for the 12-hour shift. So I'm just saying that's something that I think men are uniquely willing to do. We got to take a break. A lot more in a bit. This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Brian Noonan hanging out along with me.
Set Chad straight. Text the show, 323-538-2423. That's 323-538-CHAD. Someone has to do it. Might as well be you. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. I've actually brought along a friend for this hour, Brian Noonan, broadcaster, hanging out too, just in time for the holidays. Lots and lots of things to get to, Noonan, and yet I want to talk about terrible, awful tips, the most generic, the most basic of tips that are thrown out sometimes around the holiday season, around the winter. In this case, it's tips about airport travel. But what I mean by these kind of things is when someone goes on a national or a local news show and tells you to put on a coat in the winter because it's getting cold out. We don't need that information, people. Here is one. If you want to avoid missing a flight at an airport, go early. I know this is shocking information.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I'm going to write this down because I'm flying out today at 4 o'clock. I figured I'd get to the airport about 3:50. That's not going to be early enough?
No, apparently not. This is according to new information out there. I think the Washington Post actually has this story up. They go a bit further. I will say this. They point out that it's not just the security line that you might get stuck waiting in during the high traffic seasons in an airport. If you choose to go rogue and try to get a sandwich of some kind, if you get into one of the food lines, think about how long that's going to take and how capable you are getting back on the plane. That's not, as terrible of obvious advice, but I still feel like a lot of people don't need to be reminded that a food line might take too long to catch your flight.
Craig, have you ever been in an airport, Craig? I think everybody at the airport needs to be reminded of these things. I'm going to go to California Pizza Kitchen 3 seconds before my flight boards.
Yeah.
I should be able to make it back, right?
Yeah.
No.
The answer would be a hard no there. By the way, this is just kind of...
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any tips on whether I should leave early to drive because today is supposed to be the busiest day on the roads? I like that one too.
Yeah.
That's always a good one.
Right. That is a great one. And gas is expensive, so probably fill up as many times as you can. All right. I got this.
Yes.
You might be surprised to know Google.com is not the most popular web domain, and there is actually a surprising one above it. This year, TikTok rose above Google as far as traffic on a web domain goes. Now, you might ask, like, how is that possible? I think that in the description, it actually says that if you visit multiple videos on a TikTok app, that might count as multiple visits. But that is something, man, to think that a social media web and video app is more popular than a search engine like Google. Are you surprised by that?
No, there's a lot to be said for scantily clad women, guys throwing footballs through tires,
Sure.
Cooking demonstrations. TikTok is the future, Craig, and I am in the past.
Are you going to get on TikTok then sometime soon?
I have a TikTok account.
Yeah.
This is woefully horrible to say, and I'm revealing my age. I'm not sure how to use it. I know I'm afraid of the algorithm.
That's
I'm afraid
fine.
if I look at one TikTok, it's going to set me up, and then my whole TikTok will be flooded with, God only knows what I'm going to look at, Craig. Let's be honest.
That's fine. Let me give you a little bit of good news. There's a guy that was famous for photobombing in Australian models' photo shoot recently. He created a TikTok. It's a real story. Created a TikTok. He has now got 7 million fans of his own, and all he does is put up other videos of him photobombing other photos happening in the world. And he's a guy that doesn't seem like he knows how TikTok works. I think that his kids might be doing it for him. And he's your stereotypical, a little bit overweight white guy who would just be in the background of a model's photo. Tremendously successful on the world of TikTok. So it's fairly easy to get going once you decide to dive in. As long as you got a gimmick.
There's hope for us all then.
Apparently. We got to take a break. A lot more coming up. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show. Thank you to Brian Noonan for hanging out with me.
My pleasure.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be with you. Thrilled to have you here. Washington, D.C., the latest large city to be added to the list of places that you cannot have a life if you're unvaccinated. The vaccine mandates will go in effect in January there. Chicago, of course, also announcing that recently. All of this is just, I guess, piggybacking off of what they're doing out of New York City and a bunch of other places, L.A., Sacramento, San Francisco, just so many larger democratically run cities in our country are deciding that your rights are something that you might not be, not have access to, not have as a part of the day-to-day. And even Lori Lightfoot out of Chicago describing it as just a inconvenience, which is, I know, audio we played earlier this week, should be maddeningly upsetting, creating a lot of anger out there for so many, because it's just insane the way that some of these conversations are being talked about. Case in point is this, as we point back to the conversation our current president had with ABC and David Muir, is the idea that there might be a fourth shot at some point in the near future. This is something they're doing in some other countries, and the president was asked about it. I imagine eventually you're just going to do like weekly, monthly shots for those who choose to do it. And at some point when 90%, 99% of people are like, I've had enough shots, I'm done with the shots, they'll probably also lose their freedoms. But here we go.
Let me ask you about what we heard from Israel overnight. They're already moving forward with a second booster now. So this would be the fourth shot for people 60 and older and for frontline medical workers. Is that something you're considering?
I listened to the scientists, and I'm sure the paying very close attention to that. There may be a need for another booster, but that remains to be seen.
So it It remains to be seen. There may be a need for another one. Who knows? We might do it. We might not do it. I don't really know. It's crazy to me to think about this version of this conversation and then connect it to the stuff that we're learning every single day from all of these different studies into the latest variant. Omicron is now by far the most prevalent variant of COVID here in our country and a lot of other places, of course, as it's highly, highly infectious. It may be up to 80% less serious, though. One of the most recent studies published by places like The Hill, which are certainly not places that I think lean hard to the right, say that more and more data is emerging that severe illness and death is tremendously different. And I know that any scientist, any doctor, Dr. Fauci, who did this yesterday, will throw caution on that, will tell you to wait more time, get more information. And yet they don't in the world of telling you to go get a vaccine or telling you to go do this, or they're creating mandates that'll get you fired from jobs in the future. All of those things are let's do it now. And then in the world of, hey, maybe it's not going to be that bad. And actually, there are a couple doctors who I think are being a little bit silenced by a lot of media right now who are saying this might be a very good thing. You might have a lot of optimism and hope in the idea that something is two good things at the same time. And I guess it's weird to say it that way, but highly infectious and very mild. If that's the version of COVID that winds up sweeping through a majority of the country, it will create a lot of natural immunity and a lot of valuable steps forward away from the pandemic that continues to be, this thing that takes over all of media every so often. And yet that's a conversation that everyone needs us to put the brakes on for quite some time while creating these additional mandates. Also, and just other news in the world of politics, is Joe Biden talking about the Senate filibuster, a very interesting flip-flop in this conversation with ABC, and something that, for whatever reason, maybe if Democrats feel they failed on Build Back Better, they failed here and failed there, that now is the right time to at least destroy the filibuster. I imagine this might be another huge loss, though.
You know, many of your supporters believe in order to protect democracy in this country, you've got to protect voters' rights.
Yes.
As we near the end of year one, nothing's been done. It's been blocked by the filibuster. Are you prepared to support fundamental changes in the Senate rules to get this done?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That means whatever it takes. Change the Senate rules to accommodate major pieces of legislation without requiring 60 votes.
So you support a carve-out of the filibuster for voting rights?
The only thing standing between getting voting rights legislation passed and not getting passed is the filibuster. I support making an exception on voting.
Making an exception by ending something completely. This is in complete contrast to 2019 Joe Biden, who said ending the filibuster is a very dangerous thing to do. That is an exact quote. A very dangerous thing to do now, though, when it interferes with more of these agenda pieces that we want to, get moved forward. And we're worried about people like Joe Manchin being a problem for us. We just wind up in this unique, new, none of the stuff we ever say matters at all world with Biden, because he's not in charge. Like, the biggest reason why I know politicians flip-flop all the time. I know people change their opinions on things, wildly in that world. But Biden seems to be utterly on one side of an issue and then a little bit later on the absolute opposite side of an issue. Because I think my own assessment is that in the heart and soul of a Joe Biden, he is more in the middle. He is, certainly still a Democrat and certainly still to the left, but he sees himself as moderate, and his brain tells him to do things that are not extremely far to the left. But then he's also aware somehow, and denies it, that he's not actually in charge, and that the party is now very far to the left, and the leaders and the most well-known of the young and the, I guess, for lack of a better word, Bernie Sanders would be older politicians on that side. That is the dominant way of thinking moving forward. That is, for whatever reason, the direction the Democratic Party is going. It will be a failed direction. People like Joe Manchin are a demonstration of what you can and should try to do to have a lot more success. You need to be someone who's willing to find more common ground, at least on that side of the aisle. And that is not at all the case. And certainly, again, the reason why I think we will see just a massive amount of different ways in which Biden contradicts himself time and again, and then also fails, as he has failed at several of the things that he has either done or tried to do. Build Back Better, one of the best examples of just how broken the Democratic Party is and how much lack of charisma or lack of leadership this current administration has. I want to play something else that I found very interesting. Fox sent their broadcasters back home to broadcast from home over the holiday weekend, this extended holiday weekend, I guess I should say. And I thought that Jesse Waters had quite a bit of fun with the fact that he was at home and did not want to be.
So I think we all have to acknowledge here we're in boxes. We don't want to be in boxes. We hate being in boxes. We resisted being in boxes. We were told to be in a box out of abundance of caution just to get us through the holidays. And hopefully we'll be back to normal table situation when we return from said holiday. Greg Gutfeld, it's great to see you. Your thoughts on the COVID developments?
Yeah, I want to jump in for just a second, and then I do want to play Greg's comments because I thought he was pretty funny too. That is a very, very interesting way to handle a situation like that, to be forced by the bosses to do something you think makes absolutely no sense, and for such a short period of time, too, by the way, much like the NHL deciding to delay some games for a small window. I'm not sure what the benefit, if any, is gained by this small pause in being together, because everyone intends after the holidays to be right back into the same places. But it's a nice way to handle an issue that obviously you were not okay with. Now, here's Gutfeld's response.
Yes, I find it heartbreaking that I can't be close to Harold, that we're this love in the time of pandemic is destroying us. And yet there seems to be all these epiphanies happening on other networks, and Fauci saying, you know what, we should focus on the severity and not the number of cases. And CNN's like, wow, that's a great idea. It's like, no, we have been saying this forever. And that's why what we said about Omicron is that you're going to see a lot of cases, but not a lot of severity.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely true, by the way, is that what we will see moving forward will be very easy to manipulate, in the sense that the high amount of cases, if that's what we report on and that's what we talk about, will create an opportunity for those that want to advance these odd agendas, or these just blatantly wrong and probably, illegal agendas. They will do it based on the case rate. They will not talk about the amount of serious illness, the amount of loss of life, because those numbers will be tremendously lower than in the past. That is just something that seems more and more likely by the day. And this is in the world of science and in the world of medicine, not my own personal opinion, as I am not qualified to provide that myself. But this is just the way in which things look to be going. And so it's a very important time for a lot of Americans to make sure that what occurs in our society is not a inappropriate and completely dishonest changing of the actual facts. So for that reason, just like some are saying, in the world of science, the only numbers we should pay attention to moving forward is the amount of hospitalization and the amount of loss of life. And if those numbers are tremendously low, then nothing at all should change in your day-to-day life, and all should feel okay going out and living life appropriately. And certainly, and this is one of my favorite things, just because it's the holiday season, certainly enjoying your holiday with your loved ones and not following any of the advice that tells you potentially not to. All right, I got to take a break. A lot more. This is Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Wanna be boys? Give me a bowl of chili with plenty of peppers. One Mexican heartburn. Why don't you mugs grow up?
The Chad Benson Show, where independent, a la carte thinkers have a seat at the table and a voice in the dialogue.
I'll have what she's having.
This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here as always with you. And so many things to talk about in the world of just news, and then also in the world of crazy political ideas. I can't get over this, what Newt Gingrich said about the idea that Hillary Clinton might potentially be back in the running in the Democratic side of the aisle to run for president. The reason why this is so hilarious, other than the fact that Hillary would be such a terrible choice for any office of any kind, or any campaign, any kind of election of any kind, is the idea that it sort of makes sense in the world of just how bad things have gotten for Democrats for this to be a potential talking point. I'm not saying that it makes sense that she actually attempt to run, because she will absolutely lose and is a terrible candidate. But when you look at everything going on, when you look at all the failures of year one of the current administration, you do get how even Hillary herself could be like, hey, now's the time for Hills to make another go.
I fully expect Biden to not run again. I think the Democratic Party would be in a state of shock if he did. I think Kamala Harris is weaker than Biden. So the latest rumor I heard was that Hillary's going to run. And I think that it would say a lot about the chaos of America if Hillary Clinton reemerged one more time.
Yes, it would say a lot about Democrats, about the infighting, about the idea that even Joe Manchin, is probably considering more so than he would ever say publicly, and more so than Republicans would ever actually insinuate is true. He's probably considering flipping sides, becoming a Republican, because of how crazy, because of how ridiculous so much in this world has gone in the world of politics and just the world of the failed administration over the last year. And actually, you know what? If I do this even easier, I can jump to Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan, who's talking about the January 6th investigation and the amount of, the likelihood, I should say, that he will cooperate with the demand for information being sent to him, and then how he so quickly demonstrates the actual issues and the actual problems we face, and a lack of focus on any of them.
I mean, we just got the letter today, Brian. We're going to review the letter, but I got to be honest with you. I got real concerns about any committee that will take a document and alter it and present it to the American people, completely mislead the American people like they did last week. And it turns out it looks like it wasn't just one document they did this with. It was other text messages as well. So I got real concerns with that. But I'm focused on the issues you just brought up. I mean, think about this, Brian. In the last 12 months, we went from a secure border to chaos. We went from energy independence to the President of the United States begging OPEC to increase production. We went from safe streets to record crime. We went from stable prices to record inflation. And the world now views us, in light of the exit from Afghanistan, in a much weaker way, and doesn't know if they can count on us. Those are the concerns the American people have.
Absolutely correct, sir. And amazing that you can get all that done in about 25 seconds. We'll play it one more time, because these are the things that our politicians, our hired, the employees of the people should be working on.
In the last 12 months, we went from a secure border to chaos. We went from energy independence to the President of the United States begging OPEC to increase production. We went from safe streets to record crime. We went from stable prices to record inflation. And the world now views us, in light of the exit from Afghanistan, in a much weaker way, and doesn't know if they can count on us. Those are the concerns the American people have.
Yeah, I wonder if that's a more valuable thing to say if you're actually called and you do decide to speak with this very, very politically performance-based panel, and this performance-based investigation, I should say, into the January 6th events. All right, two other things, totally shifting gears away from politics and the news of the day to, I guess these are both festive, holiday-related. The first one, and I love this, they were testing how fast an Audi could go, some specific vehicles, with a Christmas tree on its roof. And they wanted to see which of these sports cars might perform the best. As I said, an Audi RS6 Aviant did better than others. And I don't know exactly how many were tested, but it hit a speed of 181 miles per hour with a Christmas tree on the top of the car, 183, on the final test. Not that you'd ever need to go that quickly with a Christmas tree on your roof, but that is incredible. When the cars were tested without the lack of aerodynamic kind of setup that a tree would create, one of the other cars, a Spencer Geschwin, went 205 miles per hour, but the tree ruined that car comparatively. I think it only went in the 170s. The Audi is the option of choice. I would love this, actually. Next time you go car shopping, especially if you're in the market for a sports car, ask the person how fast the car goes with a Christmas tree on top of it, and just see what the salesperson does in response. See how they react to, why would you need to, we don't know. But there is now information. They have been tested, so you can get these details on some vehicles. And apparently, I don't know if Car and Drivers is going to rate them any higher in the next ranking, but Audi is doing great in the world of strapping something on the top of your vehicle. All right, we have to take a break in just a bit. After the break, I do want to talk about some of the other sillier things out there, including a step-by-step guide on how to celebrate Festivus. If you are a Seinfeld fan at all, you know that now is the time of Festivus, and we will do our best to celebrate that while also wishing you a Merry Christmas, not being afraid to say it. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Thrilled to be here. Look, I have to talk about this issue in the world of swimming, a sport that I do not follow often. I'm just going to be honest about it. But there is a U.S. swimming official who has resigned over this debate about transgender women competing in women's sports. And I think that this person, her name is Cynthia Millen, does a great job of pointing out the problem, and a problem that all sides should be able to understand, no matter how woke you are, and how this is just competitively unfair, even though it's a topic we keep talking about. If you have a swimmer that competes and does well as a man and then transitions to be a woman and competes very quickly in that sport as a woman and just obliterates record after record, you have to acknowledge a problem. No matter, again, how much you want to be cognizant or talk about the different ways in which you're respectful, loving, whatever the word might be, to make sure that you're woke in today's society, it's just obviously unfair. So much so, by the way, before I play this audio, that if you go back and watch any of these recent events, the crowd doesn't even cheer until the first biological female actually completes some of those races because of just how ridiculous the difference in times were. But here is Cynthia Millen on Fox News, recent interview, talking about why she resigned and why she thinks this is something that needs to be talked about more openly, publicly, and willingly by people who will say, you know, with a name given, with a not in an anonymous quote, I should say, a version of complaining about this.
Joining me now is Cynthia Millen. She's a former national USA swimming official. Cindy, I say former because you just left this sport days ago. Why did you quit?
Raymond, bodies swim against bodies. Gender identities don't swim. Leah is a man who is swimming against women. And there's no problem with Leah to swim, but Leah should swim against Leah and not against women. Men swim 8 to 12% faster than women. Men have larger lung capacity, skeleton, circulatory system, heart, and nothing that Leah did by taking a year off to take testosterone suppression drugs, that does not change Leah's body. So every time Leah jumps into the pool, it's a man who is competing against women. This is grossly unfair.
There is no better way, I think, to articulate at least the challenge that would be trying to find fairness while doing something like this in today's society. A lot of the ideas out there to, rectify the problem as best possible would be to require a mixed gender division to exist in the world of swimming, or to have a mixed gender option, and then allow men, women, whoever feels like they want to compete in that league to do so. And then if that person is male or female, it would be irrelevant. Other than that, thrown out as a solution to the problem that this is, I can't think of anything else. And I know that anytime anyone discusses this, those people that are on the certain side of the political aisle, or just people that want to make sure that everything is 2021 versions of woke, they will tell you and they will say to you that refusing to let somebody compete is just wrong or somehow unloving or whatnot in our society. When the reality is, and this is the best way to articulate it, and the best a way to focus on, some of the repercussions of things like this, is for those individuals, those women who now are losing and losing badly, to say how unfair it is for them. Just put yourself in the shoes of a parent who is raising a daughter who loves swimming, who dedicates everything that she has to that sport and is really, really good. Not that should matter. You should love your kid even if they're not that great at the sport they love. But if they're really great at it and they think that they might do well enough to compete in college, to maybe even compete to win, national competitions in college, and then when they get there, they wind up looking across the pool and seeing someone who is just going to beat them for no, reason that they caused. There's nothing that they did that they should not have done or that they should have done differently to get them on a fair playing field with the other individual. If that was your kid, if that was your parent, even someone who is super woke, I think, in this conversation would say how unfair and how disappointed they'd be for their child, especially, and this even comes into case in this story because of the number 2 swimmer in those events being someone on the same team, especially if it's someone, on the same team as your kid, someone that's, competing for the same school that you would have won if not for this one other competitor. And so it's just so confusing to me to think that we don't have a better solution to a problem like this, and that it's actually hard and somewhat scary, I would say, for a lot of these swimmers to come forward with the opinion of it's not fair, like that individual has just said. And we do need, I think, these messages to have names and faces to them to better understand the problem, at least for some in society to better understand the problem. I also do want to play this audio, another interview on Fox. This was a Chicago pastor blasting Mayor Lori Lightfoot for a lot of the rhetoric she has thrown out there. This specifically touches on the defund the police rhetoric. And this pastor would be one that works in communities that need, help, to say the very least. Defunding the police is never going to be a solution to getting, and the amount of rampant crime we've seen, of course, reinstates that, but it's never going to be a solution to getting some of the communities that see large amounts of violence, like in Chicago, to just magically get better. And it's not surprising to see this kind of conversation popping up more and more, especially when we're reacting to the mandates and the other things now going into effect in Chicago. There will be a lot of people, I imagine, in cities like that will be mad is the wrong word, but certainly provoked by an idea that their lives won't be allowed to continue as they used to. There are a lot of individuals that are not just, Republican people, as the news tells you about, that will be very upset in a unique way, and it may cause more violence in a city of Chicago when those sort of things actually take place in January. But here is this reaction from the Chicago pastor.
Do you see a connection between the mayor's rhetoric, where she wanted them to essentially take $80 million out of the police department budget, with what we're seeing on the streets of Chicago today?
Yeah, Steve, I'm on the roof to bring attention and awareness to violence, but also to raise as much money as I can to build a community center to fight the violence. And I do believe that all the talk about defunding the police has added to the morale. I do believe that it has impacted the police dramatically. If anything, we don't need to defund the police. We need to fund them more, especially our detectives, where they're overwhelmed and overloaded with cases that they're having problems solving. Because
that is a community leader. That person's name is Corey Brooks, by the way. He is a pastor in Chicago that works often on the South Side in the violent areas of the city, saying that we need more police. We need more funding, especially for detectives and people who are going to investigate cases. And when he actually touches on morale, I believe what he's saying about that, and this is me adding some thoughts, so if they're wrong, certainly I guess we can get them on the phone, but I know that others would feel this way, that the morale is kind of a twofold conversation. It's not just the morale of those who feel like the city and the areas of violence are not going to get better and start to become more afraid of the places they live, but it is the confidence of those who are intent to commit crimes. And we're seeing this in the smash and grab situations throughout the West Coast. We're seeing this in a lot of the other different jumps in violence and surges in these kind of just carjackings and whatnot in our country. It is people feeling as though they almost immediately have an argument if they wind up getting in trouble, and that argument being that, the police are just bad people, or that, more and more often, in order to push ourselves or our society into a place that some say is quote unquote better, or I think not real. A lot of people are doing things like pulling back on even having repercussions. And that's honestly what you saw on the West Coast and in places like San Francisco, is when you pull back on trying crimes for people who are just stealing things, you start getting theft in broad daylight. You start having car doors and windows left open so people don't break into cars, because that's a better deterrent, just leaving everything accessible and demonstrating there's nothing in a car than anything else. We need a prevention mechanism. And that's honestly, it's always the thought process on the left. If you look at the border too, that idea that like prevention isn't necessary, but that maybe healing, and that everything else that you do after the fact of any sort of crime that's committed, those things we need to address, we need to react to, but not before they occur, which is just crazy. And certainly in the world of Chicago and everything else that we're seeing now in the news on a daily basis, and the way in which violence is getting worse there. When you talk about this conversation, when you watch the actions of a Mayor Lori Lightfoot, all you wonder to yourself is how they could possibly hope anything changes, because you don't get change from doing less. It almost never occurs where a society evolves and gets better because you pull back on anything. And again, you can just kind of look at our border to see how that goes, and how many people say, yeah, I turned around and came to the border and decided to try to get into the country because I heard it was going to work. I heard it was going to be easier. I have to take a break. A lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Check out our Chad Benson Show Facebook page, where you can hang out or hang your grievances out to dry. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I talked about this story just a little bit yesterday. The woman who was competing on Wheel of Fortune got the right answer, but was told she took too long in between completing her sentence, and thus she lost. I'll go ahead and play the audio real quick. This swept the internet, took it by storm over the last 48 hours. And I do have good news. A Christmas miracle, as some are calling it, has occurred, although this is pretty hilarious in the world of a Christmas miracle. Here is the audio, though.
All right. What are you doing is the category. You have 10 seconds to try to talk it out. Good luck.
Choosing the right card.
No.
Choosing the right...
Wait for it.
Word.
You know, this one's tough because you said all the right words, including the word, but as you know, it's got to be more or less continuous.
Does it? What are you talking about? She said all the right words. She completed the puzzle correctly. She just took a long Obama-esque pregnant pause in there and thus lost. Apparently, after all of the backlash on social media, and it is hilarious that this many people cared about this story, not because I think they're wrong, just because, again, it's a woman losing a contest on a reality/game show that didn't get an Audi. Audi is going to go ahead and give her one. The company tweeted, "You're a winner in our eyes. Now let's get you that prize." I think this was last evening. So there you go. Audi is going to go ahead and gift a car to the woman who lost on the Wheel of Fortune. That would be Charlene Rubish, just in time for Christmas. Yeah, sometimes you look at all this. Sometimes you read everything going on and everything that's going viral in the world of the internet, and you scratch your head and you wonder why people care. And then every so often something like this happens and you at least smile. Again, I don't think I was going to be on the bandwagon making sure this woman got her car, but she was robbed. She definitely did complete the puzzle correctly, and so that's fine. Internet doing a thing that's just, it feels more internet-y, which, by the way, is what Let's Go Brandon is. For anyone that gets upset, anyone that gets mad, anyone that's in the crazy talking heads parts of some of the news media of the day, or some of the politicians out there that are frustrated by this, that is just as internet culture as this woman getting an Audi. In other news, Joe Burrow recently said that the reason why he's so good at avoiding the most recent outbreak of COVID-19, I love that he said this, is because he lives in Cincinnati and there is nothing to do in Cincinnati. Unfortunately, there's not a ton to do here, is what he said last night when talking about everything going on and just being a quarterback for the Bengals. It's hilarious. to me that he would go that road. And I know, and it says here that a lot of people are likely to be very offended by that kind of thing. But, I don't think Joe is wrong. I think that if you were being honest and fair, it probably isn't quite as difficult to stay inside when you're in a place where there's not quite as much to do. And I'm not trying to be mean. Cincinnati's certainly got a lot more activity, a lot more going on than some places that are not truly cities in our society. But it made me laugh a bit. And I hope there's no one out there that gets immediately upset that I found this humorous, that I found this funny when you compare it to some of the other places in our country that are probably, a little more active. And again, I imagine even Cincinnati will probably reach out and be upset and demonstrate the wide and various amounts of things that you can do while visiting, because it certainly is a city. It made me laugh. And I don't know if Joe said it as a joke and doesn't expect that in our society today, none of those jokes can be made. I don't even know if I can make it. And yet there it is. It's happened. It's out there. Moving on. I mentioned this earlier. It is, of course, Festivus, how to celebrate the Seinfeld holiday for the rest of us. There are actually tips. This is in the New York Post, things you need to do in order to celebrate the holiday correctly. It does immediately mention COVID, by the way, so that it tells you, even when we're giving Festivus tips, a fake holiday created by a TV show that's widely popular, people putting those sort of things on the internet can't help but start with be safe, be careful in the world of COVID-19. I wonder how the Seinfeld cast would react to that. Getting the aluminum pole is important to prepare for Festivus. Be prepared for an amazing evening of airing of the grievances as well. You should celebrate the day, of course, by finding your loved ones, getting them in a room, and telling them how they've screwed up. It's one of my favorite fake holidays, and one that I think I'd always like to celebrate but never actually have. A Festivus for the rest of us. Of course, when people do certain things. One writer actually said that their loudmouth brother decided to copy the Seinfeld tradition, and they're no longer speaking. So, grain of salt, I guess, in this world. But I would say to anyone out there reacting, and some of it's gone viral, and there's a lot of reaction now on social media, you don't need to bring in COVID to the fake holiday. You don't need to mention. I wonder if people would be uninvited to Festivus if they are unvaccinated by the vaccinated, because wouldn't the point of Festivus be to yell at those people if you're so upset with them, as I'm sure some people in families that are going to follow that advice are? That is a challenging situation. I don't think you can do Festivus via FaceTime, so I don't know what Fauci would say. Man, I now want to ask Fauci that question so very badly. I know that you said, Dr. Fauci, that you should uninvite people to a Christmas celebration who are unvaccinated because, apparently you want a lot of families to hate each other at the holiday season. But what about Festivus? It's much more important to have those you disagree with within earshot for that holiday, sir. And I wonder how he'd take the question. He'd probably give me some form of I'm a moron and moving on. I'd love it if Rand Paul actually could ask him that. One other quick thing. I know we got to take a break in just a bit. A mom of 7 talks about how this is on a recent episode of a extreme couponing show, talks about how she's putting her kids through college. Of course, as we're talking about student loans getting delayed in repayment, this one woman's success is becoming more and more viral. She coupon cuts. She has cut so many coupons, she believes she saves about $40,000 every couple years in all the groceries and things that she's getting at extreme discounts. It's not uncommon for her to go to the store and have a checkout say $550 and have the actual paid price be something like $5. So there's a new solution. I know that we're delaying student loans. Maybe we start telling all the families to cut coupons like this woman. Quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins, filling in. Thrilled to have you with us. Happy holidays as we get closer and closer to the Christmas holiday. I want to start out by playing some audio from Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. I can't believe that this continues to be the accepted, not just the common, but the fact that it's accepted version of conversation, the way in which you emotionally implore or beg or, and, you know, when lack of all other options exist, force people to go ahead and get a vaccine, saying stuff like this. The governor talking about Christmas, about getting together with family members, and laying on the most ridiculous guilt trip version of what if that you could possibly fathom. And beyond this, too, not even necessarily scientifically accurate anymore, to say the very least. But here we go.
To all the families who want to be reunited, there is no reason not to. Just be smart. Vaccines, boosters, masks, and when you're thinking about who's at your dinner table, think of the most vulnerable person, and can you live with the guilt if something you did made them sick?
Can you live with the guilt if something you did made them sick is a sentence that the governor out of New York spoke today when trying to encourage people to get vaccinated by again insinuating that if you're unvaccinated, you are more likely to transmit, more likely to get COVID, which is less and less true by the day. This is a conversation that needs to evolve desperately because it's a flat out lie. And the problem with that is the way in which this continues to just be a conversation between loved ones. Think of it this way, and this is the more horrific, in my opinion, way to think about it. Say you're someone who is vaccinated. Say everyone in your family is vaccinated. You gather for Christmas and somehow, some way, God forbid, someone you care about, someone in an at-risk part of our population were to get sick and have a serious illness and or, I don't even want to say the words with Christmas coming so close, but, you know, pass away. If everyone were vaccinated, but this person that got sick just watches CNN all the time, they would be convinced one of their family members lied to them and had to be unvaccinated. They would just be convinced of that, and you would have a horrific time trying to convince someone that were not true. But it is just simply a fact that gathering together this holiday season, unvaccinated or vaccinated, you can transmit COVID-19. And that's not to scare you. That's not to tell you we shouldn't gather. Because the other thing that's not being talked about anywhere near enough is the data about Omicron that continues to come out, that continues to say that the most prevalent now variant of COVID in our society is also tremendously more mild than other variants, 80% less likely to cause serious illness and or death in the data we've seen so far. Certainly a lot more data still needed to confirm that to Dr. Anthony Fauci's standard. But it is just interesting that is not even being mentioned when someone like Hochul will go out there and say that you could hurt or kill a family member if you want to see them for Christmas. That is nuts. And I can't even think of how this would be responded to if the parties were reversed. Oftentimes when we do these, imagine if or whataboutism versions of conversations, you have to say that what if the other side were doing this a certain way, or what if this were happening this way? The only thing you have to reverse in this scenario is that if Democrats believed in being unvaccinated, if they believed in your right to choose, which I kind of thought they did about some things, but if Democrats were fighting that fight and Republicans were going out there into the world and saying things like some of these doctors that pop up on CNN, saying that if you're unvaccinated, then you deserve to be put at the back of a healthcare line, then you may, not be treated at a hospital, things like that. And also things like restricting your freedoms. If we just reversed the R and the D to be in reverse, to be the opposite, we would have pandemonium. There would be so many stations saying how hateful and horrible and how, Donald Trump has taken over and encouraged everyone to hate each other. Because all this every single one of these conversations is hate. In my opinion, that's all it is. It's anger. If you think hate is too strong of a word, then certainly it is anger and a lack of even feeling a need to disguise it. Case in point, let's go to her. Let's go to Joy Reid talking to these two different medical professionals, these two doctors on CNN. And the thing that all three of them said, different versions of a horrific take, in my opinion, from a party that says that they're always on the side of those who need to be treated, with extra care. Those people who are shunned or turned around by society or, treated unfairly. This now is the same calling card of these people.
I know, just off the top of my head, at least a half dozen people who've gotten COVID, who are vaccinated, but who got it in settings where they were around mixed groups, where people were not necessarily unvaccinated or not necessarily vaccinated.
You have no idea. I'm just going to be super specific here. How these people you have no idea. You do not know that this case came before that case, that this person who was unvaccinated was the cause of this. You just don't know. In the world of COVID, it is so difficult for us to understand who actually originates an illness. We can sometimes pinpoint a location where some of these things break out, but the specific individual who is at fault for any one outbreak, because there's so much asymptomatic illness in this virus, and so much lack of testing. Not that you should get tested, but just it's absolutely the case that those who have no symptoms wouldn't really go seek out a test. That she could not know this first thing she said. Let's continue.
So the unvaccinated are spreading this thing, and it's mutating. Let's be frank, because of the unvaccinated. Okay.
No.
So I'm running out of ideas about what to do if people are refusing to protect themselves and other people.
That's hateful. In my opinion, that's hateful. Let's hear one of the doctor's ideas.
I do think negative incentives, whether it's a vaccine mandate in the workplace or, and this is where it gets controversial, but we need to start talking about this, the bioethics of it broadly, because this is not the last respiratory pandemic we're going to face, Joy. What do we do with somebody who's unvaccinated, who's taking advanced ICU therapies from somebody who is vaccinated in the hospital? How do we rank order that priority? We do it for organs, kidneys, livers, lungs. We say, did you smoke? Did you drink recently? If you did, you're lower on the list, even if you need it. We need to start thinking of that model, have bioethics around it, a framework.
Look, here's my reaction to talking about this throughout the day today and just thinking about these kind of things. We are at a place now via all the media that's available to us, all the different ways in which you can choose what TV stations to watch, what things you like on social media, what things you type into the Google machine, to just have a reinforcement of all of our opinions, all of our thoughts, just continuing to create this cone of how we live our everyday life and how we walk through and experience and understand things. And there's wonderful examples of how terrible this cone can be in our society. One of them is certainly Kyle Rittenhouse, and anyone who just knows for a matter of a fact that person is guilty of a crime, even people you talk to now, and then you ask them, did you watch any of the trial? Do you know about any of the information that came out? And the answer is no. The answer is no, it's not important. Or we can go to what happened with the attack in Wisconsin, where the person is driving the van through a parade and taking lives. And then people don't know that person has radical, anti-white things that they put out on social media, or rap conversations, or anti-police things that have been put out into this world. And people just assume that's not true. Or even the debunked conversation that individual was running from some sort of other, interaction, that he was being chased by police. None of that was true. It's just so crazy to think that these cones can get tighter and tighter in our world. And then you have multiple people on a television station that is, unashamed of its one-sidedness, having a conversation like that where all involved are like, yeah, that's the right thing. This makes the most sense. And it's truly just because their experience now, their cone of understanding is so tight that they're so out of touch with so many other people in our society. The best possible way, and I'm getting super soapboxy here, so I'm going to take a break in just a second and we'll get to something sillier. But the best possible way for you to not struggle with that same cone of understanding, that same belief system that has been narrowed over time by life experience, is to not remove people from your life who you disagree with, to not get rid of those that you care about. I'm not saying to go be friends with every single Democrat or Republican you've ever met in your life, but those people you care about, to not allow for a ideological roadblock to exist, and to actually have an open mind when talking about that conversation with someone else. And one of the easiest and best examples I could give to you is if you disregard Dr. Anthony Fauci's advice and you go to your Christmas celebration with someone in your family, someone who I assume you love and care about, who winds up being the opposite of you in the vaccine or non-vaccinated world, and have an understanding conversation with that person. That alone would actually probably help people on both sides of this issue open that cone of life experience a little bit wider and have a little bit more of an understanding for those that you think are just evil if you watch things like CNN. That is my advice for the holiday. It is absolutely counter to what Dr. Anthony Fauci said. Spend a holiday with your loved ones. And if there are people in your family that are absolutely the opposite of you, vaccinated or not, have a conversation about it. Don't shy away from it, and do it from a place where you're not just going to scream and yell at them the whole time or tell them they deserve to be in the back of the line at the hospital. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on the Chad Benson Show.
Deep states? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. I have to talk about this Indianapolis educator. His name is Tony Kinnett. He has been fired from the Indianapolis public school system. He has been fired because he outed them for teaching critical race theory. This is something he's done a few different ways. He was put on leave in the past. I think this was back in November because he was making other colleagues, quote unquote, anxious. He was creating anxiety in the workplace. He then had several conversations, I guess, relatively recently, and put up on social media that he had been fired. I am going to play the video. This is from early November that started to cause all of the attention and uproar. It is just simply put, as you can hear him say it, a tremendously logical, valuable, well thought out, well presented demonstration of the pretend game going on, the misdirection being created in school systems, and the reason why, if Republicans, conservatives, people on the right, people who care about the way that our children are educated in unique ways, I guess, to people on the left, because I know we all care. I guess just we care differently. You will hear within all of this the validity in these concerns that if you're someone far to the left, someone asked about this, pretend as though all of it is a lie. Here is how the lie actually exists.
I'm the science coach and admin in the largest public school district in Indiana. I'm in dozens of classrooms a week, so I see exactly what we're teaching our students. When we tell you that schools aren't teaching critical race theory, that it's nowhere in our standards, that's misdirection. We don't have the quotes and theories as state standards per se. We do have critical race theory in how we teach. We tell our teachers to treat students differently based on color. We tell our students that every problem is a result of white men and that everything Western civilization built is racist. Capitalism as a tool of white supremacy. Those are straight out of Kimberly Crenshaw's main points, verbatim in critical race theory, the writings that formed the movement. This is in math, history, science, English, the arts, and it's not slowing down. If students of color have lower reading scores, it's because of inequity. Therefore, we take from the white students and give to the color students. That's Richard Delgado, straight out of CRT and Introduction. All teaching is political, with reality and facts taking the back seat. That's Dr. Gloria Ladson-Billings, who outlined how she saw critical race theory fleshed out in public schools in 1995. When schools tell you that we aren't teaching critical race theory, it means one thing. Go away and look into our affairs no further. It isn't about transparency. It isn't about cultural relevance. It's race essentialism, painted to look like the district cares about students of color. We call it anti-racism, so you feel bad if you disagree with our segregationist pedagogy. It's taking advantage of kids' vulnerability and parents' inactivity to preen over social snake oil schemes designed to create division.
That, to me, and I know he's using a few more fun phrases toward the tail end of it, is just well-presented and sounding like a valuable educator version of an argument. That guy got fired. That guy got canned by his school for saying this publicly, and there is no better demonstration that that what someone is telling you is true than the version of, hi, here we are talking to you now, telling you that everything that this person is saying is a lie. Also, this person is fired and has to get out of our school system immediately. That is the best proof he will ever get. I feel bad for the educator for being out of his position. I'm sure that there will be several schools interested in someone like that in the very near future, places that also care about not teaching things that are theory and not fact, to say the very least. But it's just a very interesting story that I think is not getting the amount of publicity, the amount of discussion that it deserves to be getting right now. And there were some additional tweets by that educator saying that maybe the firing wasn't a fully decided thing. I believe those were more recent after the initial, I've just been fired. And if there was any level of pause from the school system, I imagine it's because that story did start to take off more locally than nationally in the area of Indianapolis. And certainly once the Daily Caller was one of the places to report on it. So if there's a change of heart here, too, from someone who was told they're gone to then not be gone, that's even further proof that's what's going on here is absolutely accurate. And it's I don't know what a better word for it would be than just upsetting and, mind-numbing at times to see the argument by those on one side of this is not real, it's invented, it's propaganda, it's a conversation to be had to disguise from other conversations. When you can hear educators say how accurate, how real these kinds of things are in their classrooms right now, in places that have policies that are not to teach it, or policies and different publicly announced versions of their standards that say it's absolutely not something that'll ever be a part of the curriculum. It's just so intriguing to me to see the continued evolution in some of these things. And I'm sure that this person, much like Joe Manchin or any others that are blowing a whistle on that side of the aisle, this person will be vilified somehow in some of the forms of media or some of the other people who come forward to talk about it. But by all of the perceivable standards right now, this appears to just simply be a true story and a person who suffered the consequences of deciding to publicize something. This is Craig Collins filling in. A lot more Chad Benson Show in a bit.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
This is the Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. Happy holidays as we get closer and closer to a holiday that I hope you celebrate with all your loved ones, and I hope you don't card them at the door asking for a vaccine card. Amazon and its web services dealt with another outage. This would be the third major outage in this month for Amazon and its cloud computing operation. This is tremendously valuable information, I guess, to a lot of people in the tech sectors because of just how exposed it demonstrates so many of these things are, quote unquote, a weak point in the internet's backbone. Because the bigger and bigger that just these few companies get, essentially the monopolies that exist in the world of tech, the more likely it is for the whole system to come crashing down. Certainly you remember, and if you don't have any smart technology in your house, you probably weren't impacted by this at all. But the outage with Amazon that caused all of their products to stop working. And for those who have a lot of smart products, that's things like a refrigerator stops working completely. You couldn't get in and out of doors that had smart locks on them. All of these things going down, creating issues. Of course, I imagine that most of these smart products also work as they normally should. But there really were some that didn't. There really were people that had to deal with things like losing food. And again, there's yet another outage that occurred this week in the world of Amazon that demonstrates just how awful it is to have so few companies in control of so much. And I imagine that this will be another big argument made by legislators, made by people that try to look into one, not just finding a better way to control, to manage, to check these industries, but actually to fully break them up. Because in my opinion, and when you have the conversation about the Facebook Meta plan, and if anyone doesn't know what that is, I just want real quickly, I want to get a little bit hyper, probably nerd to some, and go through what the objective is, in my opinion, from the stuff I've seen in the world of Facebook specifically. Virtual reality is the reason that they changed the name of their company to Meta, because they would like to create a virtual reality metaverse. I am not telling you the storyline to some, science fiction movie coming out starring Tom Cruise. This is a real thing that real companies, one, in our society want to create. And then, of course, as you see with the social media platforms that exist now or anything else, they will then be monetized through the gills, controlled in ways that are not necessarily in anyone's best interest. As we know through the whistleblowers of Facebook, the company itself will be incapable of making a decision that helps society and only really capable of going the road of what makes us more money, and no matter how harm it does to young people. And so to advance enough to a world where a metaverse is real and where you can buy a set of virtual reality goggles, throw them on your face, and feel like you're living a different life, we are dangerously close to not only having something that would permeate your life, one company, in tremendously new and unexplored ways, but something that just cannot be a monopoly, something that can't exist for one company's best interest. It just cannot be a version of life that we all live. And I'm not saying that to be some sort of crazy. I feel like a lot of today's show, maybe it's in honor of the holidays, especially Festivus, that I'm throwing out so many of the deeper thoughts today. But it just winds up being a version of, if Amazon can't even keep its products online for you to have your refrigerator work that you bought and were excited about because it had 25,000 versions of technology in it it didn't need, how could we possibly trust a company that's already admitted that they do things that hurt people or potentially cause people to hurt themselves, that would like to take over all of our reality? And that sentence was real. I just said that sentence in a way that made me laugh because of the ridiculous way in which it sounds, but it's accurate. That company would like to own your reality, in a sense. In other news, I want to play this because it demonstrates CNN actually coming back to reality a tad. This would be a take after Biden's interview with ABC, in which at least one person on CNN said that Biden's latest conversations, the things he's getting right and wrong, and even just the way that he's incapable of taking responsibility for some of his most recent mistakes, all these things are bad. Again, this aired on CNN.
Repeatedly throughout this interview with David Muir, which was recorded this afternoon, President Biden seems confused and, was confusing the 500 million tests that they've ordered with the 500 million pills. Of course, pills were in the news today with the Pfizer approval of the antiviral. So he corrected himself, but that was one thing that struck out to me. But then simply this administration and the president leading the charge here, really not accepting any responsibility at all for this lack of testing. We've seen these images across the country, long lines, just the inability to get tests. And yes, Omicron came on very quickly here, but it has been almost a month since Thanksgiving where they knew this was coming. So he said he wishes he could have acted faster, but then, explains why he didn't. But the question also is, the at-home tests for January, there is no sense from this administration those will be sent out early in January.
There's no sense they'll be sent out correctly. There's no sense they won't be overloaded and have the system shut down, a system that sounds like it's definitely going to be jam-packed with requests. It's crazy to think even that this administration believes that they can function appropriately in a world where they make 500 million tests available to all Americans via a government website and or phone number. It's just insane to think that that's something that's going to have any level of likelihood to not be just fraught with problems. But it's the more important things that are touched on there in that take. Again, from a surprise news organization and saying it, maybe one that's feeling the pressure of all the different drama, all the different things that have come up recently for that organization, all the different very, very awful stories that are emerging about some of the employees who work there and some of the things that they have done or at least are accused of having done. Maybe because of all of that, CNN's like, you know what? We'll do a real news thing. We'll do something that actually allows someone to say a thought on a certain side. But it's tremendously interesting to me to wonder when you look at the administration right now, how they could possibly continue to not take blame for any of these things. And even if you don't care at all, even if you have no interest in getting a COVID test, which I don't know how many people are in that world. If you think you have COVID, I'm sure you'd want to get tested to be sure or to know. This is something he talked about a year ago. I've mentioned it before. Our president a year ago this month was talking a couple different times about how it was a tragedy, a travesty, I believe he actually said, that we had no tests, that we were running out of tests for COVID, and that we needed to do better. That was a year ago. And somehow, over the course of the first year of this administration, although I guess when you look at all the things they've done and not done over the year, maybe it's not a somehow to you. Somehow, they don't have that question answered even still. There's one other story that I thought was interesting that's totally not in that world, but a very different world. The headline for a Bloomberg article was Bitcoin worth 15 quintillion is just another day in cryptocurrency. It then goes on to talk about an industry that is plagued by trading glitches, infrastructure snafus, hacks, and just plain weirdness. And that is just the start of this cryptocurrency craze that happens at times and then seems to be a very, very risky, very volatile version of investing. It is just kind of insane to think about the potential value of something like this. And actually, and this is the only reason I kind of wanted to bring it up, it reminds me of South Park. If you haven't seen their latest special talking about all things COVID and certainly painting a target on all kinds of people, making jokes about people on all sides of all the issues that are so prevalent in our society today. One of the main characters, the joke is that they're trying to convince you to invest in digital products. That's the joke. And this person is a villain in these specials. And this person is demonstrating to, I guess, you, the viewer, just how ridiculous a lot of these digital products might be. Not necessarily crypto, more the NFTs, the things that I don't want to explain any further than that, in which you invest a lot of money in essentially a digital photo that's supposed to be utterly unique. But same basic principle in the world of something that exists online and nowhere else, and as you're told it's finite. It's just so funny to me to watch the way in which someone can parody and make fun of what is an industry that is worth the amount of money and the ridiculous amounts of money that I said at the start of talking about this, and probably is likely to continue to go upward in value if it's not eventually just regulated out of existence. It is a tremendously, tremendously interesting additional future conversation, I guess, for us to have, and one that I would highly recommend if you want to laugh and then also probably worry about the society that's in front of us. That would be watching that South Park documentary. They also make a lot of great jokes about if humor gets completely removed from our society due to wokeness. So that's one other recommendation I will put out there. One of the characters is a late night talk show host in the distant, or I guess not that distant future. And every single joke they make has a tremendous setup and a non-existent punchline. An example would be something like, these three people walk into the bar that are all different and they're all really nice people. And that's the end of the joke. And it makes everybody around that character laugh hard because that's all humor will be in the future. It was the most sarcastic and hilarious parody of something that is absolutely happening in our society and how woke culture is changing so many things. And so many artists and comedians are saying they're fearful of even trying to do anything remotely, interesting or innovative in their industry for a fear that they'll immediately be canceled. So I highly recommend that. And certainly if you're investing in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, you're probably doing well. But maybe you'll also find the jokes on that episode or that special of a TV show I overly talked about just now somewhat amusing. A quick break, a lot more. Craig Collins filling in on The Chad Benson Show.
Being antisocial sucks. Hang with Chad's friends on Facebook, The Chad Benson Show. And if you just need some alone time, head on over to Twitter at Chad Benson Show. Either way, we can't wait to meet the real you.
This is The Chad Benson Show. My name is Craig Collins filling in. First, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone out there. I know we're just a little bit away from the holiday, and I want to just kind of take a few moments at the end of this hour to talk a lot about holidays like Christmas. This is going to be a very self-serving segment. I don't know why I feel a need to do this. I'm a Catholic. I've actually been used before on radio, kind of in a gimmick sense, as a Catholic news person, someone who reacts to the news of the day in the world of Catholicism on shows that I've worked for in all different capacities. So I guess even though you're not familiar with me, you don't know who I am, just a fill-in host for Chad Benson, I have at times gone by the name Catholic Craig in certain radio segments. And so I can't help but want to talk about a holiday that is obviously tied to my faith, but a holiday that's certainly well beyond my faith too, and the way in which our society today seems so afraid of even having a honest, open conversation about things like this, things that no one would really determine to be harmful in any capacity. The fact that, and I know you've heard this before, these rants are, not new, not necessarily unique in any way, shape, or form, that taking away from saying Merry Christmas and encouraging people to say Happy Holidays, finding ways to be as inclusive and as woke in 2021 as humanly possible is the only way to live your life, and you can't possibly do it a different way. I think that we have that same flawed version of logic that we have right now in some other, I guess, more unique, more significant or relevant to the current things happening in our society, like the vaccine, anti-vaccine conversations. Not that I think anyone's really truly anti-vaccine per se. I think there's people that are just much more concerned about something that is as new as it is compared to those who aren't. But in all these conversations, it seems to me that the thing we're trying to protect our society from is this belief that just because I have an opinion, I demand that you have it too. And this is going to be a fairly extreme example to also provide to contextualize this even more. But when we have conversations about race relations or about any of the things in our society where someone actually would say, and this happens in academic circles and not in academic ones, that it would be okay for a minority to be racist because they're not in a position of power, and that just white people can be. Actually, it's not even that. I'm actually misquoting it. Some people will tell you that a minority person cannot be racist and that only a white person can be because that person isn't a person of power. In all of these conversations, we rely on that same thing, that same idea that if one minority opinion exists and one majority opinion exists, that the majority opinion has to be super woke. Otherwise, it's going to cause a problem in our society. And what that essentially means is that we no longer think for ourselves. I can't say to you, Merry Christmas, and tell you that I'm Catholic and do it in a way that's okay for people in our society because of the assumption that you think I would feel it's not okay that you're not Catholic or that you don't want to say Merry Christmas. And the true version of acceptance, the true version of getting to this ideal world that we'll probably never get to, and I'm super soapboxy to end the show just around the holiday season, but I cannot help it. The true way to do this is to be blind to all of these things, to not care if someone does agree or disagree with you, and to only care about the values that you believe to identify in the people that you meet in your life. And if that person wants to say Merry Christmas, if that person wants to say, that they believe in certain things, that's all right. If that person tells you that they're not sure about something like a vaccine and they don't want to take it, that's all right. And if you're someone that did take one, even if you're the former president, President Trump, who was getting booed and did have some reactions to confirming that he got a booster shot of the coronavirus vaccine, he is not telling anyone else how to live their life. And certainly some media ran with it in an insane way, as if it's some sort of big, giant change in that one individual's way of thinking. And the reality is, I think that more and more, if people can come to the understanding that my opinion is mine and it's allowed to be whatever it is, which is in fact what a free society and our country is founded on, and that your opinion is yours and whatever it is fine and okay, none of us are causing damage to our society because none of us are forcing other people to think the same way as us. And when we do that, when we force our ideology, when we force our beliefs, when we force our thoughts on others, we get into a very dangerous world, a dangerous world we've seen before in some societies here on this planet that make us very worried about what could possibly come from that. We cannot require a way of thinking of those who do not think like us. And that is the biggest reason. And this is the, I guess, most cyclical version of a conversation that was supposed to be about the fact that I want to wish you Merry Christmas that turned into what it is now. This is the biggest reason why we can't force our way of thinking via mandates and other things, other forms of control on other people, because it's just simply not the way that society functions appropriately, properly, and valuably. And it is the way in which we get dangerously more and more close to a society that we've fought against at times in this country. So we just cannot allow ourselves to listen to a lot of those things that are being woked out of our culture. So on that note, once again, Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everyone. I hope you celebrate them with all of your loved ones, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
This is the Chad Benson Show.